Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by localmarketingsource.com.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, bringing you our local marketing industry weekly update. Now, our next LMS member faculty call with live questions is going to be next Wednesday, July 3rd at 4 p.m. Eastern, and the LMS membership provides access to our private Facebook group, live questions, and access to our private members portal. Now, this week we've got quite a few good things to talk about for our weekly update, but we've got some additional information and some unraveling of the onion for local Google Local Carousel, or the Carousel wheel for local web. And I've got another survey to talk about, but this is not a survey with results. This is a survey that makes it very easy for businesses to add to their website from our friends over at Google. We've got some additional advice on submission reconsideration requests for the Disavow tool coming directly from Google. I got some interesting information to talk about some of the top 500 companies and their mobile sites and how local businesses can really take advantage today getting mobile results and having mobile sites where only 6% of companies have a decent mobile site. And that's coming from Google. And finally, a really good study from Forrester. And if you don't know who Forrester is, stand by, very reputable organization. And this is some great information on organic search results and what consumers tend to prefer over paid ads. Well, this week for our tips, just as a quick overview, if you recall last week we talked about the 3 keys to sharing content for local businesses. That's creating content for your audience and different tips on sharing it. Well, this week I want to reverse that and flip the coin and making your content easily shared. Okay? This is kind of like a reactive approach, where last week it was a proactive approach where you create your content and then you proactively go out and share it in different streams. This week we're going to talk about the reactive approach and making your content easily shared, talking about those different buttons, what type of buttons to put, where to put the buttons, what network integrations, and then so for this week, for our agency tip for LMS members, I'm going to get into the technology behind making your content easily shared, and this would be different plugins for WordPress and whatnot. The LMS member Facebook group, it's getting a little more active every single week, and I want to give a shout out and give Tisha a thanks for the great content that she's sharing. One of my favorite magazines, website magazines. She's got a great piece of content and a link there. And Scott's been very active. So Scott Meadows been very active in the Facebook group, and one of his posts have recently resurfaced and talking about niche-based internet marketing agencies and you going after a specific niche. So go in and get that checked out into the LMS member group. Now this week, a local business tip. I said making your content easily shared. Well, again, as a review, last week we talked about creating content and then sharing it through different distribution channels. We call that propagating your content. And every new piece of content that's created, whether it's a video or audio or an image or a written piece, you've got different strategies to propagate that content, and you've got different strategies to build your following. Well, now I'm talking about having that content to be shared on its own in a natural, organic way. Word of mouth advertising. And these are just the little tweaks. If you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, this is something that really applies. That, people tend to do 80% of what's required within a website, but they tend to forget that 20%. And it's that 20% that makes the biggest 80% impact. Well, it's very applicable in terms of integrating, for example, your website with your social networks. Whereas, and you've got different ways. Now, for example, you've got a piece of content, and let's say you've got a WordPress website, and you can get a WordPress plugin and integrate the Facebook like button. Well, let's say it's a blog post and it's an educational piece, and you go and you propagate that content. People go to your website, they read it, and then they turn around and then they want to share it. Well, they'll go and hit the like button on Facebook or the Google Plus one. Well, when they hit the like button, that will show up in that person's feed on Facebook and say, oh, this person liked this particular post, and therefore their friends are going to see it. Well, the friends may then want to go to that blog post that was created. The Google Plus one is the same thing. Google Plus has got about 1/3 of the amount of people on it as Facebook. Facebook is a little over 1 billion. Google Plus is approaching 400 million people, and that's active users within a 30-day period. LinkedIn as well. Now, a new concept of pinning content has really popped up. And that would be in terms of visuals. Well, one thing that's a visual that works very well in content that could be shared for local businesses are a trend towards infographics. And these would be infographics that demonstrate value for a local business. So local businesses that are creating different infographics are going to have a great propensity to be shared or pinned. Now, there's dozens of different social networks that are out there, and sometimes you can get these plugins that have a list of 30, 40, 50 different social plugins, and people will go and put these tiny little buttons, but go and put 12 or 15 different social networks that can be shared upon. You can't operate in that fashion. You've got to recognize that different pieces of content require different means to share. And having a little share button at the bottom of a blog post is not really going to be clicked on all that much. You'd be surprised how often people look at a title for a piece of content. They tend to like it. They go and they hit the share button and they don't even read it because they want to be the first person to share information to their social networks. So you've got to make the accessibility for share high, up physically on the page. People like to eat at busy restaurants, so even when they see a piece of content that's only been shared 2 or 3 amounts of time, people still have a greater likelihood to share that content. And so your share widget, your social network widget, should also have the functionality of showing how many times it's been shared. It's okay if content has a 0. You've got to assume if you don't have that it's going to be a 0, and people see it as a 0 anyhow. So you really want to make your content accessible and easily shared. Other considerations are like if you're going to host your own videos versus hosting on YouTube. Well, YouTube makes content easily shared and easily embedded. Good videos and whatnot, you may want to provide the embed information right below the video and say, would you like to embed this into your website? Here's the code for it. And you grab that from YouTube, making it easier to share your content. If you update your blog on a regular basis, make it that people want to see your RSS feed. Make sure you've got the ability, and with WordPress plugins, you can get a plugin for, say, Twitter that demonstrates your last 2 or 3 or 5 different tweets, your communication for that. So once people tend to follow you, you have another way to make your content easily shared. All right, now for a weekly update. Just a little bit of additional information from around the web for the local carousel. There's been a lot of different mixed results for it. One thing I don't like about it is, I use a Mac, so I use 2 fingers to scroll up and down, left and right. And so when I got the carousel, I tend to scroll. Well, when I'm scrolling back, I tend to go back. I tend to go too far and then scroll back on a page. Point being is, it's a nice thing, but it works with touchscreen very well. It doesn't work with a regular mouse, keyboard, touchpad interface. People are getting mixed reactions because you're getting a lot of different types of results. It is popping up around the world. It is popping up in a lot of the same industries. But the results are a little quirky. One thing we know about Google is they launch stuff fast and they fix it even quicker. So it doesn't surprise me that we're getting reports of very quirky results, and that's only going to improve in time. We can't consider that as a factor to negatively look at this tool or its likelihood to stay. We're seeing a lot less non-branded keyword traffic. Companies are built on brands, and we've talked about brand marketing quite a bit, and there's quite a bit of material, by the way, in the LMS portal on brand marketing. And that should not scare off any local businesses in any particular way, because brands are developed even in the smallest markets. It's that simple. Towns of a few thousand people have their favorite establishments to go and eat and drink at. Those are brands that are built. When you talk to any locals, they'll demonstrate that brand awareness exists even in the smallest communities. So what does that say for local? That you're going to have more difficulty ranking for the keyword chiropractor with your town name or city name with other factors for businesses that have not established a brand, and a brand is established through social authority. So you've got to have people talking about your business. You've got to have reviews. You've got to have content that's shared. It's that simple to be in the carousel. It's much more social than any other algorithms that have existed. We're seeing finally the carousel being rolled out to the entertainment industry. That would be dining, as well as nightlife now, hotels, different public attractions, as opposed to just dining. And so how is this going to apply? Is it going to come across all industries? Yeah, very likely, but in different ways. And it's very possible that each industry will develop its own navigational strategy, because the carousel really shows reviews and a picture and a review rating. You've got to scroll over for information. Whereas if you're looking at a chiropractor, you'd want some additional information that's not just provided. All right, surveys. Google has added a free survey that can be added to websites, and it's a satisfaction type of survey. It's just some simple code that's put it in. You can get the information from your webmaster tools. You don't need to go and pay for a tool like SurveyMonkey, and the integration is directly already into analytics, so it's nice. Google's given some advice on when to resubmit reconsideration requests and how to clean up a particular link profile. Just going to review those real quickly. Of course, we've talked about this a lot, but only submit reconsideration requests after action has been taken to try and fix the issue on the site. Use the tool within Google Webmaster Tools, those sites that link to your site. It's a really good tool to use. You can remove links by disavowing them, no following them, and having them completely removed. And when submitting a reconsideration request, provide a detailed explanation of what you've changed, why you've changed it. And finally, responses for reconsideration requests, they could take a few days, but typically they may take much longer. It all comes down to how busy of a website you really have. Fortune magazine has released a study that only 6% of the top 500 companies have websites, mobile websites, that comply with Google mobile requirements. This is an interesting point because it's not hard to get a website that's mobily compliant. So make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. And if you've got a WordPress site for your clients or your website, get the mobile plugins and ensure that the appropriate content is being displayed for a mobile audience. Forrester has released a really good study in regards to organic search results and what consumers tend to prefer. I want to go through some of these results because there's a lot that has to be said about this, and we've hung in there. Now remember, companies like Google make their money on the paid ads. So really, they don't want to take away from a user experience in the organic side, but they do want to maximize their particular revenues. And the term market share says how much money is really out there for that one industry. Well, how much money really exists on the potential table today for local businesses? And of course, that market share opportunity is growing every single year as local business awareness increases. But the size of that market share, Google's interested in really, number one, increasing that market share as an industry in a whole, and then number two, maximizing their market share within that particular industry. But consumers, as they become more and more educated, don't want to be shoved down the throat with advertising streams. So the organic side is very, very important. Well, last year in 2011 versus 2012 and 13, 50% of consumers said they found a local business through organic search results. Now it's 54%. 32%, or a 7% increase over a previous year, consumers are now utilizing social networks. So 54% use organic search engines, 32% use social networks. That's 86% of people. Local SEO incorporates a full social strategy. You're going to incorporate a strategy that encompasses 86% of the audience with just that. Additionally, links from other websites is number 3. Number 4 is emails from companies or brands. 26% of consumers, up from 15% last year, say that they've found local businesses from email marketing. 26%, 1/4. Roughly the same is a recommendation from a family or a friend through email. And as we start to go down the list, right below newspaper and magazine articles at 18%, search engine results. 18% of people say that they have found a local business through a sponsored search engine result. And that's up from 8% of the previous year. So it's a massive increase. They've increased their industry as a whole. But it's still significantly less than organic. So that's a really good study. It really shows you a few things that, links aren't dead. Well, link building in SEO is an important piece of it. But we don't go out to get links just for the purpose of getting links. This is getting links where your audience resides. And this is proof that there's audiences that get links from other websites. For example, you're a web development firm. You want to have the link at the bottom. As a local business, you want to partner with other types of local businesses to build that network. If you're a chiropractor, have a link on your website on a massage therapist's website. Partner with them. You're going to, number one, get business for that. Number two, that's a very highly authoritative link in the world of search engine optimization. Why? Because it's a good marketing tool. If it works in the marketing world, then it works in the search engine optimization world. If it doesn't work in the marketing world, then forget about that strategy in the SEO world. Well, that comes to the conclusion of our weekly update, and I'm just going to take a few seconds and get into our local internet marketing tip and answer any live questions that we may have.